guys, first of all, before we get into it today, don't forget to go to our social media accounts, Instagram and Twitter. We learn daily. Also, go to YouTube and subscribe to our channel so you're the first to know when we drop new content. We also advise you check out WeLearnDaily.com, where you can find links to all of our social media accounts, including some background information, podcast episodes, photographs, later, eventually, some merchandise, but all the good stuff is there. So again, that is WeLearnDaily.com. Check out social media, Instagram, Twitter, and of course, subscribe to YouTube. All right, so I'm sitting down with Doug today, and I'm so excited. Doug, thanks for being here.
Anytime.
Some of you watching or listening might be curious as to why I'm sitting down with Doug. That might automatically mean that WELD is continuing on, but we're going to hold out to the end of the episode to share that with you. And whether this goes on or today is our final episode, we want to say, first of all, thank you for being with us, everyone out there listening and watching and who has liked our content and subscribed. And by the way, if you haven't, you can still subscribe even if we end. Thank you for subscribing and being here. But before it ends, I want to still share my uncle's story, and I want to give a little bit more insight and background. I've talked about how we came together, but today, whether it's our final episode or not, I think it's worth hearing from the man himself a little bit more about his background, his history, and how he got into cars in the first place, anything he wants to share. So I'm excited. We're talking to Doug. Fire up. So we're working together on building this rat rod. For folks that, like me, didn't know what that is or don't know what a rat rod is, can you just kind of explain your own words what is a rat rod?
Yeah, rat rod is basically taking junk, rusted old crap, rusty old car. Usually it's an older one, maybe something, a truck or a Model A, something like that, that's been sitting in the field rusting away. Pull it out, get it cleaned up as best you can. You use whatever you can economically, cheap stuff, cheap engine, whatever.
Yeah.
Some people go way out and put really expensive stuff in them, but you don't necessarily have to. You basically just create a vehicle from old rusty junk and put it together and try to get it so you can drive it.
It's so great.
Basically what it is.
I love it. Awesome. All right, so really let's talk about cars. And just for the record, I don't know much about cars, so I probably won't have the right questions to ask Doug as he's talking about his history and working on them. So please direct message us, leave questions in the comments, contact us. If you have questions for him, we want to know and we want to answer them. We'll do it directly or we'll do it on another future episode. So let's talk cars. Start from the beginning. How did you get interested in putting together cars, or interested in collecting cars, or whatever it is that you want to share?
It was a time back then. We didn't have computers and video games.
Okay, when you say back then, Doug, I don't want to. The viewers know you're only 45, but what year are we talking about here? 70s.
70s.
Okay.
Yeah, early 70s.
All right, so early 70s.
That was what was one of the things that we like to do, was work on, other than sports, baseball, hockey, whatever it was. We always liked working on cars. And you get an older car that was usually 10, 15 years old. It always needed work, and that's kind of what we did. We shared each other's experiences with them and fixed them up and drove them. I had one of the very first cars that I really liked was a 66 Impala Super Sport. My uncle owned it. I went over and bought it from him, or I went over and looked at it, and I ended up buying it from him.
How much?
$250.
Okay.
And I think I looked at an ad on USA Today years ago, and it was valued at somewhere around $30,000 now in good shape. So it's a really popular car at the time, and relatively rare now. So I kind of kicked myself for getting rid of that. But I've had cars like that over the years. I had a 65 Impala Super Sport. I had a 72 Pinto, which was kind of fun actually to drive. I had a van. I had quite a few different cars, and I've always been able to work on them up until I got into the computer stuff, and then I really didn't do a lot. And then plus I had the accident. So after that, I had that downtime as far as being able to work on something until I was able to get this set up where I could work here on stuff. So
interesting. Anyone in your family? I mean, you talked about buying the car from your uncle, but did you learn how to work on the cars from anyone in your family? Or, I mean, you said you guys just kind of played with them, but how did you
actually,
get knowledge to do this?
I ended up working on my younger brother's cars quite a bit. We both worked on, but he didn't quite as much as what I did. He was maybe a little bit more into sports or into some sports. My older brother didn't work on cars hardly at all. And my dad, I think my dad probably did years ago, but not that much with me. It was usually just myself and cousins, friends, stuff like that.
So you just, I mean, I'm just curious because I don't have this mechanical, I would say, mind, right? Like, I know people listen to like growth mindset. Yeah, you can if you want it, but I never had a desire to really work on cars. So I'm trying to always figure out like, what is it that really sparked that interest? Do you think that was something just innate within you, or was there a moment where you felt like you read something, you saw something, or you just liked seeing cars and you want to know how they work? Is that just natural?
I think, yeah, probably to some people. But just as you were mentioning that, I was thinking when I was I was probably 12, 13 before I had, been able to drive at all. A neighbor was working on an old Volkswagen, and he was customizing that and working on that, and he was doing that in his garage. And I remember I spent quite a bit of time over there helping him, and it was a lot of times just holding a light so he could see or whatever. And that might have been one of the earliest times that I really started working on cars and kind of getting into it. But I think it's a lot of it is, just the people you're around and what you're doing and that type of thing. Because like I say, my brothers really never got into it like I had. So.
Yeah, and being part of the family myself, I mean, that's kind of why I'm curious personally of that question. I'm not asking it for the audience per se, because I just always am wondering how people got into things, or if you have a family and you all were raised by the same parents and you had similar experiences, but some people just have different interests or have different abilities, and good and bad. I mean, just whatever. Just we're all very different people.
Right.
I think that's really cool.
I think the times have changed a little bit too with the way the cars were back then. They were more. You had a lot more of the so-called shade tree mechanics that were. You could really work on the cars, and I think it got to a point where they were making them more complicated. You needed expensive diagnostic equipment and stuff like that. And it just, I think a lot of the people that might have been more interested in just didn't, because they were too complicated or they didn't have the equipment they needed to do that. So
I have a question from, again, an outsider person, and maybe it's a sexist thing to say, a female perspective, but when I look at a car, I usually like it for its appearance, right? Like I look at the aesthetics, the color, the style, we all have things that we like. I think everybody looks at cars with an aesthetic eye. When you look at a car, I'm sure you see aesthetics, but are you also thinking like, you have questions like, what's the engine? I mean, I don't even know what things to ask, right? Like, or do you, I guess what I'm trying to get at is when you assess whether you like a car, is it more aesthetic or is it more what's inside the car, the guts of the car?
I think a lot of it is looks, what I really want to do with it.
Okay.
And then you might get 2 or 3 or 4 different cars, and then you look at engine size, performance, reliability, all of that stuff, and then price. If you if you look at the Camaros, the Corvettes, the Mustangs, the Chrysler products, the Challengers and Chargers and those vehicles. I think that's really what you kind of compare price, performance, and all that, and reliability, and that's kind of the way I look at it.
Hearing you say all those things, what is your car? I feel like everyone has like I'm a Vec person, or I'm a Camaro person, or I like Mustang. Like what is? I mean, we all like all those things, or people
Right.
do. But what is like your? Oh, I love those cars.
I think I like that new Corvette.
The new ones that are
The
out.
new one, the new 2019 is a mid-engine car.
I don't know. You're talking to the wrong person. Tell me what you like about it.
It looks like it really would compete well with the some of the foreign cars,
Okay.
the Ferraris and that type of car, as far as looks and performance goes.
Okay.
It's really sweet. Other than it's their first mid-engine car, I don't think I would buy one right away. And they did. They're talking like they're going to sell them for $60,000 or something like that as a base price.
Okay.
Really cheap
Yeah,
compared
it's
to.
pretty reasonable.
Oh, it's very compared to some of the foreign cars, but I've always been more inclined to Chevrolet because those were what I worked on growing up.
Okay.
And I know nowadays they're a lot of them all the same, and they weren't the way they were then. I mean, years ago you had Ford people, you had Chevy people, you had Mopar people, and they all, competed with each other.
Yeah.
And I had a friend who loved Fords, and we'd go back and forth criticizing or talking about what they liked about Fords or what they liked about Chevys. Like he liked the Ford distributor was located in the front of the engine, where in the Chevy it was way in the back, so you had to climb all over to get in the back to get to it. But the Chevy had a little window on the distributor that you could slide open and get in there with a wrench and adjust the dwell while it was running, where other cars you had to take the distributor cap off and adjust it that way. There were just little things like that we liked. I always thought the interiors on Chevys and Pontiacs were nicer than the ones in like Mopars. Mopars seemed they were kind of plasticky to me.
Okay.
But I really love the Challengers and the Barracudas that they made. Those were really nice cars too. So it's a lot of it's personal preference, and but it was a really good time back then when they were building those. So, and they've tried to capture it now with some of the newer ones, but they just don't seem the same. It would almost be nice if they could really duplicate some of the older body styles. I thought some of the old body styles were pretty nice. So.
Very good. So as you were sharing that, I heard you say distributor, and I recognize that word because I've been helping you a little bit on this rat rod, and we started kind of cleaning up the engine or some parts, assuming that engine is going in a rat rod, and we played a little bit with the distributor. So
do you remember what the distributor was?
I know it's important.
Yeah, it is.
I know it's important because we rotated it, right? It's that red orange cap plastic piece on yours.
That's where all the spark comes from.
Yeah,
It goes to the spark
it's
plugs.
fun.
So
yeah, like this is the first time we've had a conversation and I could place something I've learned with you, so I'm really excited about that. So we can go back to cars a little bit later and things that you've liked about different cars and stuff. But let's talk about the rat rod and the history of that project and how you started, when you started, and sort of maybe where we're at or what you see happening.
I used to watch a show called, we used to watch American Chopper, which was the Tuttles. They were building choppers at that time.
Okay.
So that was one of the first shows on Discovery Channel that was like that. And it was pretty interesting. That ran for quite a few seasons. And then they come out with a show called American Hot Rod. And that was a Boyd Coddington out in California building hot rods. And that was always really interesting, some of the work that he has done. And there's been a few other shows recently about rat rods and stuff. I never really was a big fan of that stuff, but I thought it was pretty cool, some of the stuff they did and how they put everything together. And the car that I ended up buying, which was a Model A, is a somewhat common car used for rat rods and that type of vehicle.
Okay.
And
how did you find that car?
There was one on down from my house couple miles from my house, out in the middle of a field, the guy had on a trailer for sale.
Okay.
And I'd seen it a couple of times driving by there, and I was, I should stop and take a look at it. Well, my girlfriend Jo came out one Friday night, and she says, "You see the car sitting down there?" I'm like, "Yeah, but I don't know if I'm that interested." But we ended up going down there, taking a look at it, and ended up making an offer on it for the guy. And I couldn't get out and didn't really get a good look at it, but I had Jo kind of look at it and relay back to me. I think she took some pictures, and I decided to go ahead and buy it. So, but I had the guy deliver it, and that night he brought it down, delivered it, rolled it off the trailer, and there it sat for probably quite a while before I did anything, probably months before I really did anything with it. And ended up bringing it inside, started tearing it down, looking at it, and what the guy had actually done is all the parts he kind of assembled it halfway to make it look like a full, complete car. And when I started tearing it apart, it was not that at all. There was a lot of pieces missing and stuff. But some of the main basic parts I wanted or needed for it was the frame, and they were there.
Great.
So that's how it kind of got going.
Okay. So so you started kind of picking it apart and looking at it and stuff. What else have you done, or what do you foresee? What are your plans, or how do you come up with your plans of what you want to do?
I kind of got a rough idea in my mind what I want to do with it. I want it to sit low. I took the frame and chopped it, lowered it 6 inches.
Okay.
I bought drop spindles in the front. The spindles are where the front tires bolt on.
Okay.
The front wheels and everything bolt on.
Sure.
So you know
sure. Yeah.
Anyways, so that lowers the car. I want the car to sit as low as I can get it. This particular frame doesn't really sit as low as I'd like it, but it's going to have to do with what I've done to it so far.
Okay.
So anyways, I've chopped it, dropped it about 6 inches. I had an old Pontiac Parisian that I bought from my brother that I think had been through the family and probably beat up quite a bit. There really wasn't much as far as the body itself went, so we ended up cutting it all up, and I pulled pretty much the drivetrain out of it. It has a computer, but I don't want a computer on it. I want to just have spark from just get power to it. It's got a high energy ignition in it, which is built into the distributor, and I want to just carburate it and something I don't have to worry about hooking a computer up to it. Okay. And that's what we've been working on with that engine. So we'll put that engine and that transmission in it. And in fact, that's not what's in it now, but that's what will be in it when we get to that point. So that's kind of where we're at with that.
Now, I did talk to you a little bit beforehand, and you talked about the frame and this like triangulated four-link. Yeah, can you talk about that a little bit, or how that plays in?
Yeah, the Pontiac, that's what that rear end had on it, was a triangulated four-link. And it's just the way the suspension bars allow the rear end to move up and down is in a triangle shape, and it keeps it from moving side to side, but allows it to move up and down. Okay. And that suspension originally has coil springs on it, and I eliminated those and just used coilover shocks. Okay. And what those are is shock absorbers with a coil.
They look cool.
Over them. Yeah, you see those.
They look cool.
Kind of cool, the chrome and all that. And it's actually too nice for the type of vehicle that I'm building, because you see the body, and the body's pretty beat.
By the way, side note, when I didn't know that was the rat rod body. I thought it was a boat he was building. It looks like a boat to me. We'll have some pictures we'll add to this. And I kept thinking every time I came over, what is he doing with that boat? And then he said, no, that's the rat rod body. That's the A.
So. But I've got that set up. When I pulled the main cab out of this Model A is usable. It's pretty rough too. There's quite a bit of work that has to be done to that. But the rear fender, it had a rumble seat in the back Do you know what a rumble seat is?
No, what is that?
On these little cars, they used to have a seat that, it's where the trunk was.
Okay.
It would flip up, and there's a seat there, and couple people could sit in the back.
Is that like the third row seat now in fancy cars?
Other than it's
the rumble seat.
But you're sitting outside.
Oh,
you're basically
okay.
sitting
outside.
Yeah, it flips open, and
that's cool.
you sit and you face backwards.
It's like the old station wagons then.
Yeah, that back seat way in the old station wagon.
Yeah,
Except you're outside.
You're outside. Okay, love it. It's like a buggy. It's Amish.
Yeah,
basically.
yeah.
Okay.
So, but none of that was really in any usable shape for me.
Okay.
So that's why I decided, well, maybe I'll kind of make it like a truck. I put some fenders, a body back there. I'm thinking I can get a lift that'll lift my wheelchair and put that in the back.
Okay.
And that's always a thing for me to travel. I need a vehicle that I can get a wheelchair in.
Yeah.
And if I'm with someone else, I've got my pickup truck I can drive, but somebody has to load and unload my wheelchair. With my van, I can just get in and transfer into the driver's seat.
Nice.
The other cars that I've got here, I can go and drive around and come back. But if I want to go and get out somewhere, I gotta have somebody with me and take a chair, load and unload the chairs. So
Yeah.
it's a little bit of the restrictions there.
And we'll, in future, well, we don't know if there'll be future episodes, but if there are future episodes, we'll get into that and show a little bit more of what Doug's done to modify his cars, because I think that's a very interesting thing to share as well. Thank you. What else am I missing? What do we want to share today? We don't have to be done, but is there anything else on the rat rod or background history that you want to share?
I don't remember what else we need. There's a lot we need to do on the railroad. I think your next visit, when you're actually out getting your hands dirty for a change instead of editing this stuff, will be we need to pull the engine that's in there now. There's a 350 that was out of an old van that I had on the engine stand and running, and I was going to originally use that, but the 305 that was in that Parisian, which is not that great of an engine, but I don't want to kill myself with these things.
Yeah,
so
we don't want that either.
I don't want, a really big, powerful engine in it. But so the 305 that we've been working on, we need to put in that. So I think that's what we'll do, the engine swap.
So that will be maybe our If I'm Still Here, one of our first episodes.
Yeah.
Cool. That's
Or
exciting.
I'm gonna have to drag it out to whatever hotel you're staying in.
Whatever sleazy hotel that I'm at.
Sleazy motel you're at.
If you don't get the sleazy motel comment, look at our previous or prior video and you'll know what we're talking about there. Can you talk how you start? How do you decide to start a project? Or where you find your inspiration to start?
Well, I guess I could use a lot of the stuff that I do is a need.
Okay.
Like the trike, winters are not, the barn sits a little ways away from the house, so in the winter, if I get 2 inches of snow, 3 inches of snow, I can't get out here. It's really hard.
Okay.
So I'm at the mercy of the guy that plows for me, and whenever he gets here, then he gets it cleaned out, then I can get out here. So I thought, well, if I could build this trike, maybe I could, use that to get out here.
Great.
So that's where that came from. A couple summers ago, I started watching my grandson one day a week. And I'm trying to think, what am I going to do to entertain him?
Yeah.
And so that's where the go-kart started.
Got it.
Still working on that. He's going to be 15 or 16 before I finish that.
It'll be wheels. It'll take him where he needs to go. It'll be his first car. It is his first car.
And then there'll be other stuff like equipment, the rotisserie that I built, just various tools to kind of help. If I think it's too expensive to buy, then I'll see if I can figure out a way to make it. As far as the cars go, I bought the GTO quite a few years ago, and that has sat a long time.
Okay.
That I think I must have bought that in the mid-'80s.
Wow.
And it's gone from move to move, and it's always been here. But the thing I liked about it is it was a 2-door, had big doors, big car. I can transfer into it. The seat height is real good for a transfer. And I think in the back I can put the wheelchair. So I always wanted, but I haven't really progressed on it that much in all the time. I don't know if I'll ever see it done. So, but that was the inspiration for that. The hot rod kind of seemed kind of cool, so that's where I started with that. I've accumulated a couple of my kids' cars. So, but
Always learning, always going, always starting something new, never finished, always a process anyway, right?
Yes.
Nothing's abandoned, it's just abandoned
Right.
for now.
yes, something comes up that might seem a little more interesting. So.
I'm the same way about a lot of things in my life, and I'm sure people can relate. I like to read, for example, and so I'll start a book. I'm probably reading 10 books at the time. So,
How do you keep them straight?
well, it's just like TV shows. Like you start something and then you want to watch something else, or just like your cars. Like you start something and then you're like squirrel. I want to do something else, or a necessity or need, and I need to read something that gives me information.
Right.
So we have common ground.
Okay,
We're
I understand.
essentially the same person.
Makes sense.
We're gonna keep WELD going, and I have been. He's inside, he's happy. He's crying, folks, he's crying, but those tears are joy. He might pretend they're sadness or anger or frustration, but I think it's joy. I've had a lot of fun doing this, and so you can't stop doing what you love, right? That's a dumb thing to do. Life is short, life is fleeting, so you gotta do those things. But I am also going to
Take the job.
Sweet. And do that and try to do both. I think I can do both. And I think Doug was right in his advice that, I always have the power to end anything or stop something or change something. So you only sometimes get in life certain shots, opportunities, and right now I just happen to have 2 really great things going, and that's just the way life is. So I'm going to do it and try to manage all of those things. Good, I think. Good, awesome. That means we can keep working on the hot rod. Rod.
So then what other episodes were you talking about?
Okay, so to continue, I think future episodes about how Doug is modifying some of the cars. We'll look at maybe he'll let us take a peek at one of them. Also, the stuff that he's used, the tools, the machine, the equipment that he has modified or created himself to help him do all this work in the barn. So we want to break those down and have great digestible episodes for you to follow along with. And if you have ideas for future episodes or questions for Doug, as I mentioned earlier, shoot us an email, contact us on our webpage, welearndaily.com. Send us a direct message on social media, Instagram, Twitter, subscribe on YouTube so you know when we are dropping the latest content, and you can see first all the cool information and more about Doug, because,
It's not about me, it's about you too.
it's about Doug and how cool he is. Or maybe things I'm doing now that I'm trying to juggle a job and do WELD. Maybe we'll shed some light into how that is playing out as well. Doug, thank you so much for sitting down and talking with me today.
Anytime. See you next month.
See you next month.
Next week or next couple weeks.
Or in a couple days or whatever. All right, folks, so there you have it. The situation is that WELD lives. I'm really excited about this new job opportunity and even more excited about the future of WELD. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I really enjoyed sitting down and speaking with my uncle and hearing a little bit more about his past. And obviously, who knows what's going to happen with this rat rod, but that's pretty exciting too. Again, I'm Lindsey. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time. Recording.
It's recording.
Action.
It's better, look good?
Yeah.
Okay,
You look good too.
great. There's too much
It's good
shadow in
lighting.
my head.
No, it's good. It looks good.